This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcasting Network. My name is Josh Strickland. This is the Thursday edition of the show. I hope you're having a great week. Hope you had I didn't mention this, but I hope you had a great Easter under the circumstances. Beautiful weather so far. I mentioned that I was in a tornado on Monday, but ever since then, it's been beautiful. It's been perfect weather. Today's show, we have a show. We're going to be talking about teams who could make a splash in the NFL draft, since that is a week away. We'll talk about MLB players who are going to become test subjects. I'll explain that more later. CFB, college football playoff expansion talk. Then we'll also talk about some hope in the NBA. There is some hope in the NBA that they restart the season. And then, of course, we'll top it all off with movies 29 through 20 as we head towards the end of the Athletics Top 100 Sports Movies. So let's kick it off with our first topic, and this is not necessarily the biggest topic, but it is the most fun one to talk about, in my opinion. It's also the most absurd one to talk about, in my opinion. We're talking about, of course, the WWE being deemed essential business in the state of Florida. Now, there's a lot of things going on here. There's some potential political corruption here, and there's also just generally just weird things going on here. So, usually, in this pandemic, things that are deemed essential services, it includes grocery stores to feed people, healthcare workers, law and order, police, fire department, stuff like that, delivery services, and services to keep, utilities up and lights on and stuff like that. Those are deemed essential usually. But in the state of Florida, the World Wrestling Entertainment, which, by the way, that does not sound right with the in front of it, World Wrestling Entertainment, the WWE, has found itself among the services considered essential, according to Mayor Jerry L. Demings of Orange County, where the sports entertainment business has a sizable training facility, which that is their training facility there in Orlando. And they've held WrestleMania there this past month. I've discussed it before. It was the weirdest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. But Governor DeSantis, the Florida governor, he issued an executive order that went into effect on April 3rd, directing people to stay at home unless they were providing essential services or participating in essential activities. And then in a memo on April 9th from Jared Moskowitz, the director of Florida's Division of Emergency Management, the state added a new category to its list of essential services, which is employees at professional sports and media production with a national audience. So first off, that is just very specific, I feel like. And then it says only if the location is closed to the general public. So basically, this opens up this opens up a window for the NBA, for the NFL, and the MLB to kind of, be able to play. Because the California governor said that sports probably won't be played here until at least 2021, so that knocks out the whole season. So there's going to be no sports in California, according to the governor, unless things get rapidly better out of nowhere. But in Florida's kind of welcoming sports with an open arm, sports and media production with a national audience, which I'm assuming they put that in for the WWE, because WWE is technically not sports. They are sports entertainment. But Mr. Deming said that there was a review that was done with some conversations with the governor's office regarding the governor's order. They were deemed an essential business, therefore they were allowed to remain open. Talking about the WWE. So the WWE, they are still doing shows, by the way, if you do not know that. They're doing Monday Night Raw, they're doing Wednesday night NXT, and they are doing Friday night SmackDown still. I think they canceled their Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I'm not 100% positive on that one, though. I think I saw a notification about it, but I didn't really read into it any further. But this is at a time when public health experts are imploring people to gather only if they have to. So it has struck many as odd and even dangerous that a form of entertainment like pro wrestling, in which two or more people tussle, have close contact and sometimes throw objects at one another, which I don't think the throwing objects really matters that much, but this has been deemed essential, and this is kind of absurd that wrestling has been deemed essential because, one, throughout wrestling's entire history, except for like that period in the 90s when it was really cool, throughout wrestling's entire history, it's kind of been just kind of the black sheep of the sports world. You know, it's not real. It's not, it's just basically it's not real. I was going to try to come up with other things, but I couldn't think of it. And then it gets worse because immediately after this happened, WWE had a huge layoff. They had huge layoffs yesterday. They had huge layoffs where they laid off a bunch of longtime workers, longtime wrestlers, and stuff like that. They laid off Rusev, who gave $25,000 of his own money to pay some employees that weren't getting paid by the WWE. So the WWE also acknowledged that they had an employee that tested positive for the virus. So that heightens this criticism. According to the WWE, the infected employee was not an in-ring performer and had no contact with anyone else from the WWE since being exposed last month. A spokesman for the WWE said the company takes precautions to protect health of its staff and other workers. All WWE performers and staff are required to participate in medical screenings prior to entering any closed set. The spokesman said only essential personnel are on site and social distancing is practiced outside of performances. After each performance, the set goes through pandemic level cleaning. When widespread testing becomes available, all talent will be tested before performing. We have recommended our talent to self-isolate when not performing. So this has also raised some political questions, which I mentioned that I don't want to talk about politics on here, but it's very important to bring this up because it kind of explains why this happened, a major reason why this happened. So it's raised questions about the political influence of the WWE's leadership, especially Vince McMahon. His wife, Linda McMahon, former head of WWE, they have donated millions of dollars to President Trump's foundation. Ms. McMahon was appointed by Mr. Trump to lead the Small Business Administration. She is also the president of his super PAC, stuff like that. I think they also donated millions of dollars to Governor DeSantis's campaign right before this happened. So there's a lot of fishy things that went on around this, and it's kind of the most obvious form of corruption that you can see. I mean, I'm not going to call people out on corruption, but I mean, it's kind of obvious, to be honest. So there you have it. WWE is deemed essential. Now, the big news for this for other sports is that means other sports are also deemed essential in Florida, which means the MLB's plan to split up both leagues, have one league in Arizona, one league in Florida. That could still work, or they could just move everyone to Florida. That could work. I would hate to play in that Florida humidity and Florida heat every day, but gotta do what you gotta do. But sports are now deemed essential in the state of Florida. Now, this brings up other political things, like whether some states should start opening back up or not. I'm not going to get into that, just saying. But Florida, Rick DeSantis, he has mentioned that they're going to start opening back up the state because he said it's absurd and stuff like that. Once again, I'm not going to give my opinion on that, but it's going to be interesting to see what the NBA, what the MLB, what the NFL all do, because they all have teams in Florida and they all have, stuff to do. UFC might jump on this as soon as possible. UFC could go to Florida because UFC is technically a sports and media production with a national audience. So UFC could now potentially scrap their Fight Island idea and go to Florida. So I'm not really sure what's going to come out of this. It's going to be weird, to say the least. But at the end of the day, WWE is essential now in Florida. So if you ever go to a wrestling show after this, and someone says, "Why are you going to a wrestling show?" all you got to say is, "It was essential during the pandemic. It's essential now." That's all you got to say. But It's bizarre, but the WWE is now deemed essential in Florida. Still weird to say that. I'm going to keep saying it because it keeps sounding weird to me, and I'm trying to make it sound not weird to me anymore. But them's the breaks. When we come back, we'll discuss teams who could make a splash in the NFL draft with trades, first-round trades. We're going to see, we're going to talk about potential trades in the first round. We're going to talk about potential crazy draft picks, maybe. We'll talk about all that when we come back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So the NFL draft is coming up. We've discussed it many times before, but it is in fact coming up here soon. It's coming up faster than we all probably want because we want to keep talking about it. But after the draft, first off, the draft is going to get the highest ratings it's ever had because it's going to be something to watch, I feel like. But there is a lot of intrigue over the NFL draft. So what teams could make a splash in the first round? What teams could move up in the first round? What teams are going to stay put? What teams are going to move back? Stuff like that. What kind of trades could we see? And are there any wild cards? So we're going through the entire first round here just really quickly to stay in. So, of course, it's kind of obvious. The Cincinnati Bengals are probably staying put. Now, I don't really see them. They're either going to draft Joe Burrow or they're going to draft another quarterback. They need a quarterback. They're done with Andy Dalton, although Andy Dalton's still technically on the team, but they are done with Andy Dalton. They need to stay put with quarterback. Washington Redskins, they are probably staying put as well. They're probably going to get Ohio State defensive end Chase Young. That's the most likely option here. But you have a lot of teams that are interested in moving up, maybe to get Tua, Justin Herbert, or to get Chase Young. But in my opinion, it would take a lot for Washington to give up, especially with Ron Rivera as their new coach. He's a big defensive guy. It would take a lot for Washington to give up a chance of getting Chase Young, who's the best defensive player in the draft. It's going to take a lot. I was thinking like 2 first-round picks, maybe, and a second-round pick, maybe. But it's going to take a lot for Washington to give up that spot. Washington has 7 overall picks, and just 2 in the first 3 rounds. So they could trade it to get more picks in the first 2 rounds to get more quantity over just one really great player. But so they could look for a 2016 when the Eagles traded the 8th pick, a future first, a future second, a third, and a 4th to go up to number 2 to take Carson Wentz. They could look for a similar offer like that from either the Dolphins, the Chargers, or the Panthers. And then it could consider moving down and acquiring more draft capital. Detroit Lions, they could be a trade back candidate. They're under pressure to win now. They could get Jeff Okudah, which is a very high upside player. But trading down would make complete sense here. In 2018, the Jets moved up to 3 for Sam Darnold, sending the number 6 pick, 2 seconds, and a future second to the Colts. The Lions would likely love to get a similar haul from a team like the Dolphins or the Chargers. So Lions, they could give up their pick. What about the Giants at number 4? The Giants are probably going to stay put. The best move for the future of the Giants would be to explore trade down offers and acquire additional picks. But Dave Gettleman has to be feeling the heat and knows the Giants need to show significant signs of improvement in 2020. Trading down has not been part of Gettleman's draft strategy in the past. In 7 drafts, 5 with the Panthers, 2 with the Giants, he's never traded back in the first 3 rounds. Most likely scenario is that Gettleman's picks his favorite offensive tackle or defensive player at number 4. So they're probably going to be staying put. So pick 5, pick 18, and pick 26, the Miami Dolphins, they have 3 first-round picks. They are a trade-up candidate because they have all that draft capital. They've been spending last year trading veterans and acquiring draft capital. The Dolphins are loaded with the most picks overall with 14 and the most picks in the first 3 rounds with 6. They were the biggest spenders in the NFL in the free agency and now have to make a move for their quarterback. Do they sit at number 5 and hope that Tua or Justin Herbert or maybe even Jordan Love fall? Or do they trade up? As mentioned above, the comp here is the Darnold trade from the 2018 draft. The Jets moved from 6 to 3, gave up 3 additional second-round picks, including one in the future year. Teams will try to fleece the Dolphins, but the truth is that they should be able to get up to number 3 without giving up their other 2 first-round picks, number 18 and 26. If the Dolphins prefer one quarterback over the others, they might need to move up or risk being jumped by another team that trades with the Lions. So there you have it. The Chargers, they're a wild card in this one. They signed 3 free agents, Brian Bulaga, Chris Harris Jr., and Linval Joseph, who are 30 or older. The Chargers have a talented roster that is ready to compete now. If they find a quarterback, the Los Angeles doesn't have the same type of draft capital that the Dolphins have. GM Tom Telesco will be working with 7 overall picks, including 3 in the first 3 rounds. Telesco has made just 1 first-round trade in 7 drafts, moving up from Melvin Gordon in 2015. Never traded back in the first 3 rounds. Are the Chargers willing to open a new stadium with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback? Now, of course, they can go get Jameis Winston. They can go get Cam Newton. I mean, those are still open to them. So they're kind of a wild card. We don't know if they're going to go for a quarterback. We don't know if they're going to go try to get Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, or they're going to stay put with Tyrod Taylor. Another wild card here is the Carolina Panthers. They just signed Christian McCaffrey to an extension. They have 8 overall picks, 3 in the first 3 rounds. Given the state of the roster, the Panthers should explore trade-back scenarios. Maybe a team will want to move up for Alabama's Jerry Jeudy or one of the top offensive tackle prospects or a QB that will fall. What could the Panthers get back? In 2018, the Buccaneers moved back from the 7 to 12. The Bills sent them a pair of second-round picks in return to draft Josh Allen. So that would allow the Panthers to still get a quality first-round prospect and add additional picks there. Arizona Cardinals, they're probably a trade back. They're a prime trade back candidate. They have 6 overall picks, just 2 in the first 3 rounds. Stephen Keim has traded back 4 times in the first 3 rounds during his 7 years as Cardinals GM. What kind of haul could he get for an 8th pick? In 2016, Browns traded back from 8 to 15, were able to net a 3rd round pick and a future 2nd in return. They also threw in a 6th in the deal. So that would make sense for Arizona. Pick 9 and 20 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a terrible roster right now, but they're in good position to rebuild. If the Jaguars fall in love with one of the top quarterback prospects, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick one up at number 9 or even trade up. Jacksonville has 12 overall picks, tied for 2nd, most behind Miami, and 4 in the first 3 rounds. They also have potential Yannick Ngao, I'm not even going to pronounce that, trade up their sleeve, which could net additional picks. Jaguars are in a similar spot to where the Dolphins were last year and should try to stockpile picks for 2021. If Gardner Minshew plays great in 2020, that's awesome. They can build around him. If not, they have the draft capital to take a big swing for Trevor Lawrence next year. Pick 10, you have the Cleveland Browns. They're a wild card as well. They have 7 overall picks, 4 in the first 3 rounds. They could look to add more. On the other hand, they signed right tackle Jack Conklin and tight end Austin Hooper in free agency. They still have Baker Mayfield on a rookie contract. So they're positioned to compete for a playoff spot in 2020, so they might not make many moves. They might trade back. We don't know. And that's basically where that is. The New York Jets, Joe Douglas was handed a complete disaster of a roster and will use the draft to rebuild it. Jets have 8 overall picks, 4 in the first 3 rounds, but they should be looking to add more offensive tackle and wide receivers would be fine options here, but trading back and picking up a couple of additional picks would make a lot of sense. In 2017, the Browns traded back to 25 from 12 and were able to pick up a future first from the Texans, who targeted Deshaun Watson. If they don't want to move back quite as far, the Jets could drop to late teens and still pick up an extra day 2 selection. So they're a big trade back option there. 12 and 19 picks is the Vegas Raiders. The Raiders could go in a number of different directions. They're also a wild card, as they have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. Only the Dolphins have more. The Dolphins have 6. But they just have 7 picks overall. With 2 first-round picks, the Raiders are one of the teams that can justify moving up, moving back, or staying put. So we have no idea what they're going to do. Last year was the first draft with Mike Mayock. They traded down twice in the second round in a deal referenced above. The Browns got a future first for moving from 12 to 25. If the Raiders do want to pick at 12, they could always trade back down to 19. In 2018, the Seahawks traded from 18 to 27 and picked up a third-round pick. If the Raiders fall in love with the prospect and want to move up, it won't be cheap. So they're a wild card. 13 and 31, San Francisco 49ers. They received this pick in the DeForest Buckner deal and also have the 31st selection. But after that, the 49ers are not scheduled to pick again until the 5th round. So they could be a trade-back candidate to trade and get some extra picks so they don't have to just wait around the whole draft until the 5th round. Number 14, you got Tampa Bay. They are a trade-up candidate. They have Tom Brady. They're in win-now mode. They have a glaring hole in offense at right tackle. They have one of the tackles prospects ranked much higher than others on their board. They'd be justified in trading up, but the Bucs have 2 or 3 of the tackles in the same tier. They could sit tight and just take whoever's left at 14. And the Denver Broncos is going to be the last one we go. I think we're halfway through this list, or more than halfway. But Denver Broncos, they are a trade-up candidate. John Elway is always generally active during the draft, and this is a big one for the Broncos. In 9 drafts, he's made a first-round draft trade 5 times and has made a trade in the first 3 rounds 9 times. 5 of those have been trade-ups, and 4 have been trade backs, and there's no real tendency. They have 10 overall picks, 5 of the first 3 rounds. At quarterback, they're putting all their eggs in the Drew Lock basket. Broncos signed Melvin Gordon and traded for veterans A.J. Boye and Jarrell Casey. Clearly, they expect to be competitive in 2020. And then in 2016, the Titans moved from 15 to 8 and had to give up a 3rd and a future 2nd. If Elway wants to be aggressive, he could make a similar deal to that. And that's where we're going to stop this coverage. Might continue this on Sunday's episode, as we were very close to finishing off the list. So we might continue this on Sunday's episode. So when we come back, though, MLB players, they are test subjects now. I'm going to explain more of that when we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Major League Baseball, they want to come back so bad, they are willing to try any and everything. It has come out on the 14th, which is 2 days ago. It was Tuesday. The Major League Baseball team employees are the subjects of the first and largest COVID-19 antibody study in the United States. 10,000 employees of 27 of the league's 30 clubs have volunteered to take part in what researchers from Stanford, USC, and Sports Medicine Research and Testing Laboratory are calling the COVID-19 Seroprevalence Study. I'm wondering what the other 3 teams are. Hold up. What are the other 3 teams? What teams are refusing to take part in this? So the antibody test does not look for active COVID-19 infection, but rather the presence of a specific blood protein the human body produces in response to it. It is not the same as a PCR test used to determine if people are currently infected with the virus. So the study not only includes baseball players, it includes their families, it includes team staff. It also includes concessionaires, ushers, and other part-time employees, all of socioeconomic backgrounds, ages, and genders. Said Jay Bhattacharya, PhD and professor of medicine at Stanford University, one of the lead researchers of this study. Bhattacharya said it was important to include people like part-time ushers and concessionaires, frontline people who interact with a large number of people in their jobs. He goes on to say this will be the first time we will be able to see how truly prevalent COVID-19 has spread throughout the United States. And instead of it taking years to pull together a study of this scope, especially with stay-at-home orders, MLB has helped us turn it around in a matter of weeks. So the study is funded by private donors, has nothing to do with determining when to restart MLB games this season. Both Bhattacharya and MLB spokesman confirmed. Rather, it offers a look into the extent and spread of the disease in dozens of different communities in North America, said Daniel Eichner, PhD, the president and laboratory director of Sports Medicine Research and Testing Laboratory, which is SMRTL. SMRTL, Smurtle. I'm going to call it Smurtle from now on because that's fun to say. MLB declined to identify the 3 teams that opted not to participate in the study, which we need to find out who they are. No, I'm just joking. It's fine. But Eichner's laboratory usually tests for the presence of performing-enhancing drugs, and as a result, his ties in the sports world are extensive. When Bhattacharya was looking to set up a large-scale epidemiological, I nailed that one, COVID-19 antibody test, Eichner suggested they might find an enormous cross-section of subjects if MLB were willing to help. So the doctor said MLB responded immediately and made available all their team trainers and doctors to provide counseling for those who test positive. So pinprick blood tests have already begun arriving at the homes of team employees, 3 sources confirmed. The blood test sticks also come with instructions and a small lancet pen for subjects to prick a fingertip. After pricking their fingertips, subjects place the drop of blood onto the testing stick and then add 2 drops of chemical compound known as a buffer solution. Results of the test are available in roughly 10 minutes. Players and staff have already begun testing themselves at home. When their tests are complete, they are instructed to email a photo of the testing stick to a team health employee who will interpret the results and send the information along to Bhattacharya. The Stanford doctor is also having subjects fill out questionnaires related to COVID-19 symptoms and other medical histories. All that information will be kept anonymous. The MLB Players Association told The Athletic that players who opted into this study were assured of confidentiality and that their specimens would have their names removed before being sent to the Stanford lab. We are aware that some players have been asked to take part. We have been assured that participation is voluntary. It is an independent research, and it is no way part of the league's decision when to resume play, says an MLBPA spokesperson. So Bhattacharya hopes to have the results of 10,000 tests by the end of the week. After he receives the data, he says he will write up a paper with the findings immediately and send it out to be peer-reviewed, giving the urgency of understanding the COVID-19 virus. Bhattacharya says he anticipates this study will be reviewed and published within roughly 2 weeks of submission, which I feel like is a quick turnaround for these scientific papers. To even begin to understand how far along we are in battling this virus, we need to know how many Americans have had it. We won't know the true death rate or when we can even begin to think about reopening parts of our economy until we have that data. This study is a huge first step. So let's start off. Let's talk about how great it is that the MLB is taking part in this group, because they mentioned before they needed a widespread testing, and what's the best way to do widespread testing than getting 27 different cities with hundreds and hundreds of employees each, of different backgrounds, different physical attributes, sex, race. I mean, this is one of the best possible ways you could have done this study. So bravo to Major League Baseball for offering their teams and their employees to be subjects for this antibody test in the United States. Now, like it already said, it's not looking for a cure. It's just kind of looking for how much it is spread in the United States, so we can get a better idea of how much this actually spread in the United States. So this doesn't mean that they're going to be closer to a cure because of this. This doesn't mean that baseball is going to come back faster because of this. It is just to see how the spread of the COVID-19, how that spread has been going. So that's a huge clarification to make before we talk about anything. But we need the data to help decide when and if we can function without fear, or actively infecting and killing each other. So using this data would be using actual data to reopen things would be better than people just thinking we should reopen them just to reopen them. So using actual data, it will lead to better decisions overall by the government, better decisions overall by regular people. Because if this comes back and it's just like, oh no, then everybody's just going to bunker up inside and we're going to be doing this for another couple months. If it comes back and it's not as bad as we thought it was, well, I still think we should bunker up for another month or so. But I mean, if it's not as bad as it was, but you never know. But it is interesting that only 27 of the 30, I'm wondering if 3 of those teams are from Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, because there's multiple teams there, so it might not be worth it to test those teams, Like, for instance, if it was like the Mets, the White Sox, and the Angels, like, there's no point in testing those because we already got teams in all 3 of those cities covered, so we don't necessarily have to test those areas twice in a row. So I don't know. That might be the reason. But yeah, I mean, and it's also interesting that they're including concessionaires and ushers because most of the teams, the players, the coaches, the staff, and all that, they were in Florida and Arizona during all this. They were all, I'm not going to say they were perfectly quarantined down there, but they were kind of in their own little bubble because of spring training. But the ushers and concessionaires, they are normal people. They probably have other jobs that they do outside of baseball season. So they are probably going to be the best way to test this because they are normal people. They go out and do normal things like you and I. But so they're going to be the best way to represent how everything works. And it's very... Oh God, I got slight hiccups. I apologize. But it's going to be very interesting to me to see how fast of a turnaround this is for a scientific paper, because this is a really fast turnaround, in my opinion, for this paper. He said it was going to be done in like 2 weeks. Like, he said he was going to write it by the end of the week, and he was going to get peer-reviewed. Now, I'm not 100% sure on how all that works, to be completely honest. I was a business major. We didn't do this. But I feel like a 2-week turnaround time on a peer-reviewed scientific paper is very quick. But in these times, we kind of have to be quick trying to figure out, we got to figure out who has what. We got to figure out how bad it spreads and stuff like that. So who knows? But I just thought this was a really cool story that the MLB is kind of helping. And this is a large amount of people that otherwise they would have had to like send out surveys and like and get to the people, and you're not going to do that with social distancing and all that and isolation and going on. But this is probably the easiest way to get a large population for this study. So kudos to the MLB. Hopefully some good results come out of it. We really don't know, but hopefully some good results come out of it. And hopefully this helps us make better decisions so we can get back to sports and I can talk about actual sports again. Please, God. Oh my God. When we return, we'll talk about, is college football expansion talk? When we come back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So everybody's using this whole pandemic thing to freaking try to spew college football expansion talks. And now this is something I can get I can sink my teeth into, because I've had this discussion with many people. So let's start it off. So football is the main monetary source for most collegiate athletic departments. We've discussed that before. Some schools are struggling really hard right now, especially with their other athletic programs. I think University of Cincinnati, they got rid of their men's soccer program. Now, whether or not that was a Title IX thing or that was a COVID-19 thing, like they don't have enough money to fund them anymore, that's I don't know. But teams are considering getting rid of these other sports. So the main reason for that is football needs to come back. Like I said, LSU, they made like $60 million, and then every other sport was hemorrhaging $20 million, but the $40 million difference was enough to keep that athletic department alive. So football is a huge proponent, especially in the South and the Southern states. They're the big money maker. Now, because of this, people are worried that college football season is going to get canceled, or they're going to play without fans, which they'll lose like some of their profits because of that, most of their revenue because of that. So people are now using this as an opportunity to try to expand the playoffs. Now, you cannot expand the playoffs until there is a new TV deal, once the current deal expires in 2026. I guess they could sign like an extension of some sort and change it that way. But the current deal ends in 2026, and college football expansion talk has been happening since the college football playoff happened. And here's my main issue with college football playoff expansion. What more do you want? We went from the BCS where no one was happy to a 4-player playoff system, which everybody was happy with for like a year. Then after that, they were like, oh, we need to expand it to 8. Okay, we expanded to 8. Probably 1 year, everybody's happy with it, and then next year it's like, oh, well, number 9 didn't get in, so we need to expand it to 16. When does it end? When does it end? I think 4 is a perfectly fine number. Yes, there's controversy every year, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't like it. If I didn't like that controversy. Every year we have controversy between 4 and 5. Like this year, for instance, Georgia didn't get in. Georgia didn't deserve to be in because they lost all of their big games. Just saying. Let me look this up real quick. But everyone wants to be in, which is understandable. But you can't be in if you lose your games. And if we add more playoff games, have more rounds and teams that can make the playoffs, not only are you extending the season by a lot, because right now, I mean, LSU went 13-0. You add another playoff game there, they got to go, LSU was 15-0. Add another playoff game, they're playing a full, the teams that play in the national championship are playing a full NFL schedule pretty much. And also, you got to shorten that. Like, that means the first round would have to happen like 2 weeks after the conference championships, and then you have to play the second round, the semifinals, 2 weeks after that, and the national championships 2 weeks after that. So it's less time to prepare, less time to rest. So, I mean, it kind of attributes more to the grind. But I've seen a lot of teams that benefited from that month off you get to get players healthy and stuff like that for either the national championship or for whatever bowl game they're playing in. So, for instance, this past year, you have LSU, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Clemson, number 3. Those 3 were perfectly understandable. They all went 13-0. They deserve it. Then you have the discrepancy here with Oklahoma at 4, Georgia at 5. You could argue Baylor and Oregon as well at 6 and 7. All those teams could have made the number 4 slot. Now, here's the difference, though. Oklahoma, they won their conference. Georgia lost both of the games that they needed to win. They lost both the games they needed to win. Those 2 losses. Georgia lost to South Carolina first off, which that disqualifies them automatically, in my opinion. But they also lost the big game. They keep complaining that they deserve a shot in the college football playoff just because they are considered one of the best teams. Well, you had a shot, and you lost to LSU in this SEC championship game. You had your shot, and you lost. So be gone. You lost. That was your playoff game. The conference SEC championship, the Big 12 championship, where Oklahoma and Baylor played, where Baylor won, Baylor could have snuck in. stuff like that. Most of these conference championship games, guess what? They're already an extension of the college football playoff. Now, for the Pac-12 or the ACC, you might disagree with that. But for the Big Ten, for the SEC, and for the Big 12, they are clearly an extra playoff game. And people don't understand that for some reason. My biggest issue with expanding the playoff is that it kind of makes conferences completely obsolete. If you move to an 8 team and you do like 5 automatic bids and then 2 wild card and then a G5 or whatever, first off, the G5 thing's never going to get off the ground. The college football playoff has made it very clear that they do not give a crap about the group of 5. Like, for instance, let's see here. The first group of 5 that got ranked on last year's final rankings was Memphis. They went 12-1. Then you have Boise State, who went 12-1 at 19. App State 12-1, 20. Cincinnati is 10-3, Navy 9-2. I'm telling you, Boise State, they got walloped by Washington. I'll agree with that. But App State, Boise State, and Memphis could probably beat most of the teams from 10 to 16. You're looking at it. I mean, Penn State's a good team. Utah, that would be a good game. Auburn, I can see them being Auburn. Alabama, that's okay. I'll give you that one. Michigan, I think they can beat Michigan. I think they can beat Notre Dame. Iowa would be kind of a tough one, but I think they can do it. So the group of 5 teams, it doesn't matter. They're not going to add a group of 5 teams in the playoffs. So the 8, so expanding to 8, you're basically just doing automatic bid for 5 conference championships and then the next 3. So if we expanded right now to 8, it would be LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Oregon, Baylor, and Wisconsin. That's if you expand. Now, I'll agree, those would be a lot of fun games. I'll agree with that. I'll agree. I'm not opposed to the football aspect. I'm opposed to the season aspect, because you ruin the regular season by expanding the playoffs. You ruin the regular season by making it a little less important, ever so slightly. You also make conferences less important, where you still have to do the automatic bid, but you don't have to. You don't really have to. You don't have to. Because in this format, there's a possibility that 3 SEC teams, actually, there's a possibility 4 SEC teams can make the college football playoff. And you might be arguing, well, if they're the best teams in the country, then they should deserve it. And I'm sitting here and it's like, well, sure, but what's the point of having the SEC conference? What's the point of having the Southeastern Conference then? If we're just going to put half their teams into the, like, there's no value to the SEC championship game anymore if you just put 4 SEC teams in the playoff every year. There's no value to the Big 12 championship because Baylor got in anyways. You see what I'm talking about? Baylor and Oklahoma, they played. Winner has a chance to go to the college football playoff depending on how Georgia LSU goes. And I'm just saying, this is all hypothetical. I mean, they were going on at the same time. Anyways, Baylor versus Oklahoma. Winner makes the playoff. Let's just say it that way. Winner makes the playoff. Oklahoma wins. That's in the 14 playoff. Oklahoma wins, makes the playoff. Makes for a fantastic game due to stress, due to everything's going on. 18 playoff. It doesn't matter. Baylor's going to be in anyways, so this is just for pride at this point. You see where the issue is? I mean, I suppose you could say the winner will get a better seed and play a more favorable matchup or something like that. But I just don't see it, man. I don't see it. LSU versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. Why should either team care besides pride to win the SEC championship? Win or lose, you're in the playoff with an 18 playoff. So that is my rant about the college football playoff. I don't think it should expand. I think expansion talk is just a money grab. It's going to happen because it is a money grab, but that is my personal opinion on the expansion talk. I think 4 is the perfect number, and I kind of like the controversy that happens every year between who should have gotten the 4th spot. When we come back, we'll talk about the NBA having hope to restart their season, and we'll discuss that when we return.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hope. That is all we are asking for at this moment in time. We are over a month without sports. And it's getting hard, man. I can discuss college football playoff expansion talks all I can. I can talk about WWE's being stupid or Florida being stupid. I can talk about the NFL draft for only so long. But we need hope. And one league that appears to be having more optimism as the days go on is the National Basketball Association, the association, if you will. Can the NBA season be saved? Can it? If there's a will, there's a way. Then there's this. Global pandemic that touches millions and brings professional sports leagues to an abrupt and an expensive halt with the COVID-19 experience, forcing them to reconsider their place in society at large while assessing the many morbid dangers that come with the eventual restart. Their business doesn't matter in the grander sense, but there is a ton of money involved and livelihoods well beyond the athletes themselves to ponder. The collective will could be through the roof, and there will still might not be a way. So, politicians, stakeholders, hopefully doctors, as well as scientists filling their ears with all the latest perspectives. We now see all of these commissioners coordinating with their people, and even the president of the United States, while knowing full well that the answers and the clarity about how this should all unfold will have to come over time. Patience is, in fact, a virtue, but it's tougher to come by when there's cash leaking out of every last crevice in your company, which is where most sports companies are at this moment in time. Which brings us to the NBA's Board of Governors meeting. Remember, they're no longer called owners, they're called governors, which I still think is strange, but to each their own. They met on Friday. And sources say that this will take place in a digital ether. The meeting, which will be a virtual version of the session that is the annual affair of this time of year, will take place over the video service of their choosing and will likely include Adam Silver, reminding everyone that there's no way to know whether the 2019-20 season is salvageable just yet. The NBA commissioner has said publicly that he won't have a substantive update until May 1st, which we are 15 days away from that. Oh, God. But this will be a place for the different viewpoint, strategies, and concerns to be heard while they wait. And they have a lot of waiting. Despite all the worldwide despair that has come with these past few weeks, with America soaring to the top of the list in both coronavirus cases and deaths, there's a reality within the NBA circles that is hard to reconcile at the moment. When it comes to the prospect of saving the season in some form, sources say that optimism abounds in the ownership, player, agent, and league office ranks. In the interest of full transparency, we didn't poll every owner, every player, every agent out there, not even close. But in making the rounds with some of the more prominent people in those communities, found it apparent that there's a shared goal of finding a way of finishing this campaign and a widespread sense that it's still feasible somehow, some way. So you have the obvious first one, which is without fans being present at games. California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti made so clear in recent days that it will be quite some time until the sports world can return to the days of packed stadiums and arenas. Ditto for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. I don't know if I said that right. I've heard his name so much in the past weeks. But he told CBS this week that a fans in the stands existence is a long ways off for pro sports leagues, but expressed a desire for televised games to return in a not-so-distant future. So for the NBA, which is approximately 80% of its regular season completed, and so much financial incentive to cobble together some kind of postseason, the widespread optimism that this will happen, it remains. But is it possible? No one really truly knows, but it is quite clear that these internal conversations about finding a solution to remain robust, and Silver, whose track record as a respected and responsible leader affords him the benefit of the doubt here. He's the one who must figure out what sort of schedule might be workable while never forgetting that the virus will have the final say. A few relevant thoughts that were gleaned from these conversations and that will likely play a part here. So this is... So here's a quick excerpt here. While some players in other sports have pushed back against the notion of a bubble city in which players, staff, and some media might be quarantined in neutral locations, several NBA players with whom I spoke shared a different view. Angels' Mike Trout was the most notable to highlight some of the obstacles recently as he detailed his concerns with an interview with NBC Sports. He basically... So he said that basketball guys are for it if they want to play. One NBA player from a title contending team wrote, MLB is different because they have a whole season. We just have 1 to 2 months to finish up. One looming question, the player added, is whether their families would be allowed to join them in the bubble city or any location they might wind up playing. By all accounts, Las Vegas appears to remain as the leader in the NBA's quarantine clubhouse. The combination of hotel space, hoops facilities, and the rough blueprint that was built from all those summer leagues past is an interesting option, with all the teams staying under one sanitized roof. You also hear other scenarios in which teams might wind up playing in various locations. But plenty of unresolved questions remain. With the testing shortage being such a serious problem at this point, will the NBA be able to secure the number of quick turnaround tests necessary to ensure its players, coaches, staff members are all safe? Brooklyn Nets guard and National Basketball Players Association Vice President Garrett Temple discussed that this is key. He said that the 45-minute COVID-19 test results is big. The ability to be able to test and get the results that quickly. I think that if we have the situation where we know the testing can be done, where we know whether the person has it in a much more timely manner, and we test right before we go into the facility, wherever we end up playing is ideal. Everyone gets tested. If we have enough tests to go around to do that, I feel comfortable enough that the league will have it under control to where we can play if all the players are negative. Even if the league could secure these tests, there's a serious potential for a PR nightmare on this front again. In those early weeks after the Rudy Gobert positive test, when so many teams seemed to have little trouble getting tests for their teams, while so many people enjoyed no such luxury and suffered as a result, there was criticism about the haves and have-nots element in it all. The optics weren't great, to say the least. Not long thereafter, sources say the NBA made it clear to its teams that they were not required to disclose the results of COVID-19 tests to the media and by proxy the fans. Translation, the public doesn't actually know how many players were infected by the virus beyond the 7 that have been previously reported. But the choice was made to handle the information internally unless the player himself chose to share this information. There's no value judgment here per se, but it's a fact nonetheless, and if the league is going to ensure everyone's safety, from the players to the equipment managers to the front office executives and the older coaches like Houston's Mike D'Antoni and Orlando's Steve Clifford, who have suffered health scares before, there will need to be a routine testing throughout the restart process. It's hard to assess the ethics of this testing subplot just yet without knowing that what the national testing landscape looks like when the summer rolls around. But considering the massive part of it that America's testing shortage has played in this country's struggles to ward off COVID-19, with the New York Times deeming it an epic failure, so many politicians echoing that sentiment, it's safe to assume that this will be a raw nerve topic for the foreseeable future. With good reason, league officials need to handle this part of their plan with extreme sensitivity. Above all else, the timing component here is what grabbed my attention the most. One team owner, for example, discussed a scenario in which players were given approximately a month to get back in shape, including their team training camp starting in early June. The regular season began in July, and the finals were eventually played in late October. Another owner agreed wholeheartedly that the league-wide confidence was growing that this season would be saved, as did a few other folks who have the quality read of the room. There's wiggle room within these informal discussions that appears to be aiding the mood too. Do you try to finish the regular season schedule, maybe cut it in half or go straight to the playoffs? Do you go with a 5-game first-round format just to speed it up. There is, it seems clear, a willingness to be flexible that is keeping the NBA's hopes alive for now. So, the NBA, they're hopeful right now that they can get a season. All the governors and of the league and the league commissioner are all working on ways to get this going. They're all being very flexible with how they're doing it. Like they said, it's going to be a very, very time sensitive. It's going to be a very, very calculated move, in my opinion, because there's just so much to, consider here, from a PR standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and stuff like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle all of that. But we, like Silver said, we're not going to find out until at least May 1st. So another 2 weeks, I guess. When we return, we'll talk about the movies 29 through 20 on the Athletics Top 100 Sports Movies when we come back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, folks, we are heading down to the final stretch here. We're doing 29 through 20 here on the Top 100 Sports Movies done by the Athletic website, which if you've not been to theathletic.com, it is a paid service, but it is very good at what they do. So go get it. I don't know. Most of my stories come from them because I'm not creative enough to come up with my own stuff. But anyway, 29... Let's get into it. 29, Friday Night Lights, 2004, average rating of 84.24. Between the book and the series, the movie sometimes get the short end of the stick. That's unfortunate because there may not be a pure sports film out there, emotionally speaking. From Billingsley's battles with his dad to Booby's busting knee, the rawness of these high schoolers dealing with unfathomable pressure is something else. How could you not get chills listening to Coach Gaines' perfect speech or hearing Ivory Christian challenge his teammates? Let's not forget the music, which has since carved out a niche of its own in sports lore. So, my family was huge in the Friday night show, so I mostly know about the show. I have seen the movie. It's okay. The movie's alright. I like the show a lot better, to be honest. But, the movie's pretty good. It's alright. But Friday Night Lights is the perfect epitome of high school football. My dad's a high school football coach. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful show showing Texas high school football and stuff like that. It is an amazing show / movie, so check it out if you haven't, especially if you're huge into high school football. Number 28, Creed 1, 2015, average rating of 84.39. This didn't just revive the Rocky universe. It's one of the 2 best films in the series. Michael B. Jordan's Adonis Johnson / Creed is an all-time performance in a sports movie. Jordan and Tessa Thompson's Bianca relationship and the Philadelphia specific details are great. The fight with Leo the Lion Sporino, which is one long tracking shot, is perfect. The entrances when Adonis fights pretty Ricky Conlon and Goodison Park, because Sylvester Stallone is a huge Everton supporter, are perfect. I'm here for at least 3 more Creed movies and a spin-off with Victor Drago from Creed 2 as well. So, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the Creed movies yet. I need to watch them. I've been meaning to watch them for the longest time, but I just don't have... I just haven't. I guess I could now with all this going on, but, I'm working a lot now. But, heard it's fantastic. revive the Rocky universe, apparently. I heard Creed 2 is fantastic. Creed 2 was earlier on this list. Both of them are apparently fantastic movies. I like Michael B. Jordan. I liked him in Black Panther. I liked him in some other movies that he's been in. I like Michael B. Jordan. He's a pretty good actor. So I have to check it out, I guess. So 27, Ford versus Ferrari, 2019, average rating of 84.46. Josh Cooper from the Los Angeles Editor says, go see this movie. If you haven't seen it yet, then it should have been the next thing you do after reading this. I gave it 100. Not only did it score a Best Picture nomination, but the acting, action, and storytelling were superb. I got teary-eyed when Ken Miles was explaining the perfect lap to his son while they were sitting on the tarmac of LAX, staring at the Southern California sunset. So, Ford versus Ferrari. I actually have been meaning to watch this for the longest time. I have it. I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. I've heard it's fantastic. It got Best Picture nomination. It's got Christian Bale in it, which I'm a big Christian Bale guy. It's also got, I think, Ben Affleck in it? No, Matt Damon. Sorry, Matt Damon. Same person, basically. It's got Matt Damon in it. Matt Damon's fantastic as well. I need to watch this movie. I've been meaning to watch it for like the past month and a half, I think. I mean, like before the Oscars happened, I wanted to watch like every Best Picture movie, which I got close. I still need to see Ford versus Ferrari and Parasite. So, I need to get on that. 26, Remember the Titans, 2000, average rating 84.48. First, it has the best actor of all time, Denzel Washington, playing the lead, playing it perfectly. The man not only makes you believe he's a real football coach, but he has you ready to run through a brick wall for him. But there is a significance beyond the theatrics. This film, loosely based on true events, depicts a Virginia high school football team's fight for inclusion and equality battles from the early 70s that so many are still fighting for today. Remember the Titans is easily one of the best sports movies of all time. I don't know how it's only at 26. We're going to see when we continue going down this list. But it is the best football movie I've ever seen. You add in the integration, the inclusion, and the equality storyline to it. Then you add in the different characters and how they all weld together. The two coaches becoming friends towards the end, even though they had animosity against each other. The fact that I had to watch this for a test in one of my college classes, Fundamentals of Coaching, tells you all that you need to know. It is a necessary movie to watch if you are a sports fan. If you are a football fan, it is a necessary movie to watch. It is fantastic. It's got great jokes. Ain't No Mountain High Enough is stuck in my head every once in a while because of this movie. It is a great movie. I'm sure all of you have watched it already. It's kind of difficult to find someone who hasn't watched it already. Even non-sports fans love it because it's just a great movie overall. It's got Denzel Washington, and check it out. Number 25, Moneyball, 2011, average rating of 84.68. The genius of Moneyball is the way it merges its highly technical subject matter, front office maneuvering, baseball analytics, with the most basic storytelling tropes. The brains are baked in, the heart and the entertainment value comes from the structure and execution. On one level, it's a classic underdog story with Brad Pitt's lone visionary bucking against conventional wisdom in a deeply unfair system. At another, it's a buddy movie with Jonah Hill's fish out of water contrasting brilliantly with Pitt's most casual arrogance. Is a numbers story, and I admit that I was predisposed to like it for that reason alone. I love it because it's all so well done, and I'm more than happy to trade some narrative smoothing for a beautiful simplicity of adapt or die. So Moneyball is a fantastic movie as well. Brad Pitt's in it. Brad Pitt's amazing in it. Jonah Hill's amazing in it. It's a good look into the Athletics when they had a chance at. I mean, it's a great look at the Athletics during this. It's based off a book called Moneyball. It's a good movie. It's a good adaptation. That's all I can really say. Number 24, The Wrestler, 2008, average rating of 85.23. It is so on point about the real world of so-called fake wrestling. This movie unnerved those in the industry. Mickey Rourke's lead performance leads you to thinking of almost any pro wrestler from the 1980s and wondering what happened to that guy. You can turn this movie off even when you want to look away. You can't turn this movie off even when you want to look away. This is a grueling movie. I just want you to know that. It goes into the depressing aspect of pro wrestling, which is after you are done becoming the guy, you go to the indie circuit and you wrestle until you're in your 60s. Actually, no, wrestle into your 70s, stuff like that. Because you need to make money. because of poor decisions you made while you were making money, whether it be drugs, steroids, alcohol abuse, divorces, stuff like that. So you have to keep making money, and this movie perfectly encapsulates all of that. Fantastic movie. Great movie, but it is not for the faint of heart. Make sure you are prepared to watch it when you do watch it. Number 23, White Men Can't Jump, 1992, average rating of 85.41. The biggest and potentially fatal flaw of the movie is that Wesley Snipes, who's supposed to be a star, isn't actually all that good at basketball. It's noticeable, especially opposite Woody Harrelson, who clearly has some game. But what not only saves the movie, but makes it a success, a legitimate classic, is the charisma of Snipes as Sidney and Harrelson as Billy Hoyle. Their chemistry is first rate. The basketball itself matters less. So I've actually never seen this movie, and I'm sorry about that. I've heard it's great. I need to watch it. So yeah, sorry. Number 22, Sugar, 2008, average rating of 86.29. If escapism is your number one goal when it comes to watching a sports movie, you may not love Sugar, but education is another form of entertainment. And this movie by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck is beautifully done, realistic view of what it's like for a young Dominican player to come to this country and try to navigate his way through the minor leagues to the show. So I haven't seen this one either, in case you're wondering. I don't know what this is. 19-year-old Miguel Sugar Santos dreams of winning a slot on an American baseball team. His talents as a pitcher eventually land him on a slot in a single-A team in Iowa. Culture shock, blah. Okay. Sounds interesting. Might give it a shot. Never heard of it, though. 21, Field of Dreams, 1989. Average rating of 86.35. No quote turns stoic sports fans into mushy messes, quite like the ending of Field of Dreams. From the moment Ray Kinsella offers Dad, you want to have a catch. The movie flipped from kitsy and interesting to iconic and heavenly. It's an inspiring movie where dreams truly do come true. Field of Dreams is one of the best baseball movies, and it's a Kevin Costner movie. I told you, Kevin Costner's on all these great sports movies. Since I'm low on time, I won't talk about it anymore. But number 20, A League of Their Own, 1992, average rating of 67. One life experience I can recommend is dressing up as Jimmy Duggan for a friend's Halloween party and overcommitting to the bit flask-wise. The reservoir of quotable lines is bottomless in any state of mind, and your friends will forever get to speculate about which one of you will be Duggan the next time you're all together. Avoid the clap. Friendships have been tested over one of the greatest sports movies' endings. Did younger sister Kit truly win it all for the bells, or did big sis Dot drop the ball on purpose? She didn't. I'll fight you. Add in Madonna, and how about Marla Hooch? What a hitter. Dottie's barehanded catch of Doris' fastball. Ellen Sue throwing directly at the heckler. Basically everything about this movie is iconic. So this is about during World War II when regular baseball was put on hold. A League of Their Own was a bunch of female baseball players that played, and this is based off that. It's got Tom Hanks in it. It's got Madonna in it. It's one of the only good Madonna movies. One of the only good movies that Madonna's in. It is a great movie. It's a great baseball movie, and that's it for this right now. We'll talk about 19 through 10 when we return on Sunday, and that's it for this podcast. Like, rate, and subscribe to the GSMC Sports Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Strickland_Josh, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. I'll talk to you all on Sunday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.